Hello everyone, how are you? This is Francis from Gumzo Open Source Podcast. And apart from the normal review of open source software and giving out some security, cybersecurity and information security tips here and there, I do actually write code. And one of the things I like doing when doing or writing some of my projects is to share some best practices. And today I want to just showcase something. I'm working on a project, a utility billing project for someone. And since I'm not the only one who is going to touch this code, I have my colleagues who might want to chip in from time to time. I make it a point of employing the best practices in writing software. So for example, on the left hand side, I have my migrations. And migrations is basically schema, database schema as code. So that I don't have to share or do a dump uh, of a DB schema and send it to you. I only need to send you the code, and once you do a database connection, you can actually run a migration and everything will be recreated in your environment. So for instance, now I have this table here. I have a payments line uh, table, and I want to just ensure for every client who was on the payment voucher, the moment the bill is sent to them, they are deemed to have been invoiced. So I realized we didn't have a column for invoiced in this particular table, and I wanted to add it. So let's see what happens. So what I'll attempt to do here. So I've opened VS Code. I have my file panel on the left hand side, my code on the right hand side, and at the bottom we have my console. So on my console, I'll just do a migration just to add that one line for just showing that we actually invoice. The moment we send the bill to the client, we invoice them. So what I'll do, I'll just say, I'm using the Year2 platform for this project. So I'll say year migrate, create. It's a migration I'm creating. Instead of just going to the DB directly and adding that column, I'll just do it via a migration, which is a best practice. So you migrate, and then I'll call it add invoiced column to payment lines table. And I'll show you why it's significant to name it that way. Actually, it's an action, is a verb. The naming itself is a verb. So you see, you are saying add, then underscore the name of the field, invoiced, and then we're saying it's a column to. Actually, now there, that would have resulted in an abnormal behavior if I hadn't gone back and look at the naming. So there should be an underscore. So column to payment lines. So the table is payment lines. As you can see on the DB, on the utility billing database, we have payment lines. Payment lines table. And then once you, the good thing with Year2, it does not just generate for you the boilerplate code for migration, but it allows you from the console to define the object itself. So here I have a column. So what I'll do, I'll add a switch for fields. You can call it a switch or an option. So for the fields, I'll say the field is called invoiced of type Boolean. That's it. And then we will see on the left hand side what will be created. So we are saying, just to go back again, the Ye application, the console, then migrate, create, add invoiced column to payment lines. So payment lines table, then fields. Let me just decrease this so that The command is on one line. Add invoiced column to payment lines table. Fields invoiced, then colon, the type. I'll do enter. So you say yes. And you can see below there we have our migration. So you can see we have the save app method. So the app method basically now will create, once we run the migration, you can see this add column on the payment lines table, column invoiced. It's not like in other frameworks like Laravel, where you just create the migration, give it a name, and then you'll come to define everything inside. In year 2, you can actually define everything from the terminal or command line. So that's the beauty with it. The advantages to other frameworks like Laravel, and there are also disadvantages. In year 2, there are things I'm able to easily do, and there are things I'm not easily able to do, like I would do them in Laravel. So there are always these trade-offs. That's done. So then the next thing is just to run the migration so that we can apply it on the database itself. So we just say migrate, and you can see I'll just say yes. And one migration was applied. Migration app successfully. So app runs this method that now actually commits the desired change into the database. If I wanted to just bring it down, I'll just run the save down method. So that would drop the change. So that's the advantage of altering your data source using migrations, because they're basically transactions. It's an actual DB transaction that if anything went wrong, if there was a syntax error, it will just roll back by itself in the process of doing the migration. So we could go back to my table, and these are the columns. So these are the columns. I can refresh it. So once I refresh, I can come back and you can see we have the invoiced. So in my code now, I'm done with that. So in my code where I'm doing the job for sending notifications, I could actually decide to say if this notification is completed, then you could say payment line. Well, let me just do something before. Let me just go back to payment line. Let's say payment lines model. So let's see. So we have all these columns, and in the rules, I'll just add it to the save format validated. I'll say here I have another invoiced column, invoiced. Then I could go back now to my job where we are executing this job and say that payment line, this payment line, the subject payment line, I want to say it's invoiced. Invoiced equals 1. Then we could just say true. Just say true. So payment line invoiced true. Then I could say payment line save. So I don't want to do any validations there. So just a flag to just mention that for that payment line, whose ID is this being passed over here, we have invoiced it. That's it. So that was just a small point to emphasize on best practices. Always use migrations when you're working with a database, and you're sure you're not the only one who will touch that code base, so that anyone else who clones that code base and brings it into their local machine, they're able just to run migrate, and they can get all your database objects in one go. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. As always, take care.